Hello again, students. This is Morales, and this is coverage of Chapter 34.1, The Drift Toward War, World War I. So, objectives pretty simple for this section. Understand the main and immediate factors that led to the start of World War I. Immediate origins, basically, what's the thing that got it all kicked off? The assassination of Archduke Francis Ferdinand in June of 1914. He's killed in Bosnia-Herzegovina. This is an area known as the Balkans where there's a lot of problems. Austria controls this area, but there's a whole bunch of different groups who are fighting for nationalism. Remember, nationalism, the idea that people of the same culture, race, language, religion, and geographic area should determine their own fate. Well, Austria-Hungary has an empire with several nations in it, and during this time period there's a lot of internal movements in there to get away from Austria or break off from Austria and get their independence. Archduke Francis Ferdinand is in line to be the next emperor of Austria. He's assassinated. Austria is very upset, and they want to go and regulate what happens in Serbia. Serbia's got friends, they got allies. Russia tells Austria to back down. Austria says, no way, we're in charge. Austria hooks up with their friends Germany. Germany backs up Austria. Russia goes and gets their friend France and England, and then the whole thing gets going. So we'll talk about more of it in a second, but if everyone ever asks you, what was the cause of World War I, don't say Francis Ferdinand getting killed. Okay, he's just the kickstart, the thing that was going. Okay, the real factors are what we call the main factors. Well, here's the killer, the assassin, Gavrilo Princip. He's a Bosnian Serb. He's trying to get independence or work for independence for his group. He goes and he knows that the Archduke and his wife are hanging around in the town of Herzegovina, and he goes to try to assassinate it. Supposedly, first two times he chickens out or backs out, and then he's sitting in front of the coffee shop, and all of a sudden there goes the car again with the Archduke and the princess in the car, and so he goes out there and shoots at them, and then does kill them. He supposedly tries to take some cyanide, but either it was old or something like that. Something happened where it didn't work. Cyanide would have killed him, so he was going to shoot them and kill himself. That doesn't work. The mob beats him up. He's later sentenced to be executed, but since he was 20 years old only, or under 20, I think he was 18 or 17, he's not executed, and he's sent to jail, and he dies later on in jail. Anyways, what he did gets World War I started, and World War I leads to World War II. So it's a major event, and it's a small-time player in this whole big scene. Let's see. The outcome, so this is the same thing that we're going to get to in a second. The first global conflict of this massive proportion, over 15 million deaths, and that's kind of the conservative side. 20 million injured. Well, I'll see some of the injuries. The end of three empires, the rise of three nations, massive global economic dislocations. In other words, a big change in what happens as far as the economies of the world, and then a clear end, for the most part, of Europe's domination of the globe. All right, the larger causes, the things that really kick this thing going. Okay, these are the factors that made Gavrilo killing the Archduke the thing that caused the war. If had these factors not been involved, it would have just been assassination. It would have been a big deal, but all these factors involved make a perfect storm for this world war to happen. Okay, competing nationalism, especially in South and Eastern Europe. What I said before, Austria-Hungary has an empire. Some of the groups want to separate. This sets up a situation for some of the turmoil that's going to be in there. Rivalry among empires. This is a big thing, especially the rivalry between Britain and Germany, and the stuff that played out with imperialism that we covered, I believe, in the last chapter, with the pressure to acquire more empires or more territories or more colonies, and then inflexible diplomatic alliances. The fact that they set up alliances that say that they have to support the other person if they go to war. They put in that hook, have to, and no one wants to back down from that because they don't want to look bad, because they could throw them out of the club. All right, the powder keg of Europe. Okay, this is what I'm saying. This is the Balkans. Okay, it's a hotbed of a lot of turmoil and problems that they've had. Austria has been able to keep them in check for a long time because they had strong administrators and they were very forceful in keeping that. But now with the spread of nationalism, kicked off by our friend Napoleon, who started to spread nationalism efforts or movements throughout Europe, and the French Revolution along with that. Remember that they spread the idea that the country should be independent, free of the emperor, and nationalist idea of a country for the people of that country who have the same language, customs, that stuff. All that is a big factor. So with these things are our main causes for World War I. Remember it, this one, main, check it out, it's an acronym. Militarism, the glorification of war, the arms race, the new technology, all the stuff that the Europeans have been building up. They're boys with toys. They want to use those toys. Big guns to blow up big holes and to kill a lot of people. It's just a matter of time before they get the chance to use them, and they're going to create a chance. The alliances, secret defense treaties and not so secrets. The fact that everyone's hooked up. It's almost like gang members, like the Bloods and Crips. And some groups are with the Central Powers and some are with the Allied Powers. Okay, so everyone's hooking up on one side or the other. Imperialism, this drive for more and more stuff, resources, territories, colonies. Okay, eventually there's a little bit of pizza left and they're going to fight for that last little piece. This sets it up. And then nationalism, what we talked about already 3 times, this intense my country is better than your country type of idea, along with the desire for independent movements within these old big empires. Okay. I can't emphasize enough that your book in Mention of the World History always goes back to Napoleon helping to spread the ideas of the French Revolution. So French Revolution comes in, Napoleon starts to spread it and uses that for he was going to try to take over Europe, and for the most part he did. Well, that sets up a situation for what we call self-determination and independence movement. So we got Belgium in 1830 became independent, Italy in 1861, and then Germany becomes unified and separates itself from the old Austria or Holy Roman Empire. So in 1871 they become a country, their own nation, and they start to grow very quickly. So this sets up this idea that this is what should happen for those European territories. Here's our nationalism in the multinational empire. So there's Austria-Hungary in the bright yellow, and there's Bosnia-Herzegovina, a territory that's trying to seek independence. Serbia is another territory trying to seek independence. Okay, so all these are movements within these empires to break away from their empire and become their own place. And then everyone gets involved because Russia doesn't like Austria-Hungary. They're trying to minimize their influence in this area, so they start to help out, and particularly tell Serbia, we will back you up. You are Slavic, we're Slavic. Wouldn't you like to hang out with this pan-Slavic group? Okay. In the Ottoman Empire, what we talked about before, the Ottomans start to lose parts of Greece. So if there's Greece right there, clicked on that. And then they're going to have troubles in this area of Montenegro, Macedonia as well. And so these places are in turmoil, and there's tons of groups involved in this area who are trying to fight for their own independence and break away from other empires. The rivalry among empires. So British Empire is starting to decline. They've had dominance for quite a while, okay, since the mid-1750s-ish, a little bit later, okay, but they were the first to industrialize, the first to imperialize, and things have been going great, okay. In 1870, 32% of the stuff being made came from England. And check it out, by 1914 it's dropped to 14%. Whereas Germany is the up-and-comer. Germany is the big threat to the British imperial or industrial empire, dominance. And with that, they scare the snot out of Britain. Well, that's not acceptable, and Britain's got to do something. So this competition becomes big, especially after Germany unifies and becomes a country and starts to rival England in production of stuff. Germany really wants what they call their place in the sun. They want colonies. They want to be like the big boys. And the only reason they don't have that is because they got started late. They weren't a true nation until the 1871. And now they want to get their part. So remember, going back to Africa, they take the 3 territories or the 3 areas, one in the east, one in the south, and then Cameroon, and then Togoland. And they have to fight for what they can grab, or influence in those areas from other European groups. So this causes more tension. Okay. The big thing was a naval competition. For the longest time, England has enjoyed a big dominance as far as naval power and naval superiority. Well, now Germany started to pressure that and scared Great Britain. Great Britain even goes to the extent that they start the construction of a brand new ship called dreadnoughts. Well, if the British have that, the Germans are going to get that. And now we have this arms race as far as Navy goes. So the navies are used to control the trade routes, and also in case of war, and also for protection of your trade ships. Okay, and also it's a status symbol where our ships are better than yours. Oh yeah, well I could beat you up 10 times. Oh yeah, well I could beat you up 15, and it becomes that kind of threat. Now it's just a matter of time before they actually use those things, as opposed to just to scare off things. Okay, and then the role of public opinion. During this time period, there's going to be a lot of media used to focus attention away from issues in home and to get your kind of a pep rally for your country, your nation. You must love your nation type of thing. And this is pressed into the papers because the papers are selling them and they're really cheap with the industrialization of newspapers, newspapers that can be printed quickly and fast. It's the stuff that you guys had in that movie about the newsies, the kids that sell the newspapers. Well, a penny for a newspaper, and you read the headlines. Okay, this is brand new stuff that didn't exist before. So, in the stories would be big stories about how that evil nation, insert the name of nation, was doing bad things and they're not being nice, and not like your nation that's always perfect and good. Well, this creates more resentment towards the other group. It makes it easier to hate them and easier to say, oh, let's go to war with them. And then a lot of this puts pressures on public politicians to do what's popular rather than what's right. Okay, and it creates a situation where they're not going to like each other, and it's going to create a situation where they're going to have this system of alliances where they got to protect each other, and they set themselves up. So all this, once again, is kind of perfect storm material to put them in this situation where they have these diplomatic alliances pressed on them because they fear the other group might attack them, so that other group gets their own allies because they fear that they might get attacked. And then we have this chain reaction of global war. If one country gets involved, they're all going to get involved. So we have the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and then later Italy. And Italy has some issues because they're not a great team player at that time, because they're trying to do their own thing, which is getting the Austrian-Hungarians upset and also getting the Germans upset, but they're on that team, so big deal. The Triple Entente gets together because Russia and France fear the threat of Germany. The UK feels the threat of Germany. Russia feels the threat of Austria-Hungary, so they look for friends and backup. And then pretty soon you got the two big groups, the Triple Alliance and the Triple Entente is a French word, okay, who are ready to back each other up, and they committed themselves to protect their area. So here's a map of Europe in 1914. The area in gold: Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Over here we got France, Great Britain, and Russia, those three. And you notice that Germany, Austria-Hungary are squeezed in the middle. Okay, this makes Germany on edge. They even come up with a plan in case there's a war called the Schlieffen Plan that they're going to have to carry out. The concerns of the Entente, the cultural similarities of Germany and Austria-Hungary, those two groups get along because they're very similar. Austria-Hungary used to have a big influence on German states. Okay. The main factor is the worries over the two-front war. Like I said, Germany is very concerned that could get attacked on two sides, having to split their forces and fight on both the east and the west. And then the big concern is that English can dominate the sea, and therefore if Germany can't get the supplies it needs, that would be a big issue. The worries over the possibility of French attack, the Russian interference over Austrian Balkan policies, so Russia's getting mixed into the Serbia affairs. They're saying that Pan-Slavinism, all those issues are things that are happening with the alliances, and those are the things that can pull them into the war. Okay. The concerns for the allies on the other side. Russia's worried about the strong Austro-Hungarian alliance. Russia's right next door to them. They're concerned. The UK, United Kingdom, Great Britain, balance of power. They like the balance of power because they were on top, and so they want to maintain that status. France is worried that Germany is trying to push them, okay, on the on their eastern border, and then they signed the treaties of the pacts that says, hey, look, if you get attacked, we back you up. And finally, we have the mutual threatening war plans. The French developed their plan called the Plan XVI or 17, which is basically attack, 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 and the Germans have their Schlieffen plan,